welcome to Trusty Chords, the podcast which aims to celebrate music and those that create it. I say this a lot, but as a former Adelaidean, I really do enjoy listening and chatting to musicians from South Australia. If you're someone whose finger has firmly been on the pulse of the City of Church's music scene, then you might be aware of Any Young Mechanic, a quintet whose music is a true delight for anyone who enjoys a blend of indie, folk and rock in equal and appropriate measure. They're actually a somewhat nascent addition to the music scene because before they adopted their current name in late 2024, they were better known as Wake In Fright, having taken their moniker from the 1971 film of the same name. Due to issues with the film's estate, they took on this new name and made a very auspicious debut of sorts. That debut has taken on a tangible form by way of their stellar record, The Modern Shoe is Ruining the Foot. It's not just a dire warning for any fans of podiatric health, but also one of the finest records you'll hear this year. Former Triple J music director Richard Kingsmill likened the record to the Middle East, the band that is, not the region, and as a massive fan of that group, I have to agree that this is an album that one can only describe as truly special. Now, all of that glorious praise I just shared above is why I'm heartbroken to actually note that this is possibly the worst sounding podcast I've recorded to date. For those unaware, a lot of media interviews take place these days either in person, over the phone, or most commonly via Zoom. Any Young Mechanic were taking part in a press day in Sydney while we chatted, and while press days may usually feature in-person chats, our differences in distance necessitated the five of them speaking to me from a couch over Zoom. While that usually wouldn't present any problem, this one did, for some reason, find itself presenting numerous audio problems, whereby there are times when members simply cannot be heard and their answers are almost entirely unintelligible. This isn't a you problem either, listeners. I couldn't hear the band either during these responses, which is a shame because what I could hear sounded very passionate. I'll offer a promise to have the members back on an episode at some point in the future, perhaps when they're next in Melbourne, but in the meantime, I've presented the episode here with the audio cleaned and enhanced as best as I could. Anyway, have a listen to Any Young Mechanic's The Modern Shoe is Ruining the Foot, have a listen to our chat, and I'll see you at the end of the episode for some general housekeeping. All of the members from Any Young Mechanic, thank you very much for joining this episode of the Trusty Chords podcast.
Thank you.
Amazing. So I usually ask folks to introduce themselves, but we have a lot of people, 5 of them in fact, so a lot of questions and not that much time. So I will quickly ask you all, I guess, just do a quick sound off and let me know your name and your role in the band, I guess.
My name is Sam. I play guitar and sing.
My name is Thea. I play violin.
My name is Luka and I play banjo on this record.
My name is Allan and I play double bass.
My name is Jay and I play drums, sing backing vocal.
Stunning. I love it. It's nice and simple. Now, I will also begin by saying, as a former Adelaidean myself, it's always nice to see some South Australian accents on the podcast again. So thank you all for having a chat and bringing some South Australianness to this podcast. But it can't be all frog cakes and fruit chocks. We have music questions to ask. So typically at the start of these podcasts, I like to go back in time to talk about where love of music first formed. But I'm actually going to ask you guys about how Any Young Mechanic first formed, because I guess technically that was late 2024, early 2025, but you guys have been around longer than that under a former name. So I guess how did that first iteration begin, and why are we now going to gigs with Any Young Mechanic on the marquee of the venue?
Yeah, well, okay. So Sam and I met at university, and we just started making music together there, and have been ever since. And Thea and Sam met in a creative writing class in 2020, and Sam asked Thea to work on some session album stuff that we were working on at the time. But that relationship progressed to then Sam asked Thea to join the band full time in 2022. And then around this time, 2022, we were going a lot of gigs now that they were happening again in Adelaide, and a lot of cool bands. So on the circuit, bands like Cagefly and Irie and War Room and Twine, and Thea was playing in all of them. And so Sam poached bassist from Irie and Cagefly, and that's Allan, and the guitarist and eventual bassist in Twine as well, guitarist from War Room, Luka, and that became the band room. There was also Clara on cello for this album as well, who played in Cagefly and Irie as well. So that was the coming together of that. And then we had to change our name in late 2024 because we we asked the people that had the copyright for the film Wake In Fright if we could be a band also called Wake In Fright. And I know it's possible because there's a band called Twin Peaks, but the people in charge of the Wake In Fright copyright said, no, you can't do that.
Well,
Well, they
they
said
said
you can, but if you haven't any, we will sue you.
yeah,
So that's basically no.
yeah.
So I think that's
They
what
said
it is.
they said we don't promise not to
Yeah.
sue you.
Yeah. That's
Right.
the
Legally, that's I
Yeah.
think that's
Right. Because I mean, like this. I mean, this whole podcast called Trusty Chords. I took the name from a song by the band Hot Water Music. I've chatted to 2 members of the band so far. They've promised not to sue, but there's 2 other members, so they could be litigious. But I guess for you guys, was there any fear that a name change could derail the momentum that you'd built up? Because there's a lot of goodwill at play, and then transmitting that to folks in hopes that they'll remember this new name. That could be difficult, right?
we had a little bit of hesitation, but in terms it meant that it wasn't so previous name. I think it did quite a good job of, in the way that like hardcore bands will call their band something really huge to kind of like subvert the genre association. I think it did a good job of that. But other than the handful of friends who came to our shows, I don't think there was any like industry momentum to worry about. So if anything, it probably helped us because people became aware of us as this brand new project, even though we've been making music together for a while.
It seems like the narrative of the new band, the debut thing, is very popular. So that was kind of helpful, even though I was very frustrated at the time. To be changing.
Yeah, because I know Sam. I was hearing a lot about this through your sister Emily, who I worked with, who was a huge champion of you guys, obviously.
Friend of the band.
From the band.
Yeah, and but because I remember hearing that because I remember discovering you guys as Wake In Fright and thinking like, hey, that's a pretty solid name, like especially because there's this like whole sort of underbelly of the Australian sort of culture at play there, and you have that sort of darkness. And I mean, obviously, any young mechanic really works for you guys, but also there's the fact that now like you do have the debut album, the Modern Shoe is ruining the foot. So I guess how does that feel to actually sort of be presenting this as a debut, despite having all this material behind you already? Like, does it feel sort of like weird to effectively be in the mind's eye of the public starting again, or actually starting out? I guess so.
I guess the thing that is nice that does feel quite genuine about it being a debut album is it's the first time that everybody here played on a release as this project. So it is the first project of this group of people all together. So that's really nice. Yeah,
it's conceivably like a new band from that point of view. But I guess the thing that ties it to the older material is your writing, Sam. So I guess
it honestly didn't feel good until the record came out. And then once the record came out, I was like, yeah, this is the start of a new thing, actually. And it does feel different. And I think it, to some degree, with me personally, I think marks a shift in my perspective. I think became much more of an actual band. I think we had a band name, but I was still in quite a controlling position musically.
It was Sam's songwriting project.
Yeah, and it was like still very collaborative, but I think I was holding on to things a little bit more. And then the Modern Shoe record really felt like the first time I'd really fully had every musician working on a project completely expressing themselves. Because I think I'd been slowly working my way towards that, like bringing different people in, but hadn't quite gotten there yet until this first record. So it does feel actually quite comfortable as a debut piece now.
Right.
It was good. Yeah.
So I guess then for yourself, Sam, like how did it feel to sort of actually, I guess, relinquish some of that control? And for everyone else, how did it feel to gain some of that control?
Do you guys want to start? Well, at least for me, like, I never felt particularly like any record I played on with Sam. I never felt like ran roughshod over anything like that. Like I've always really liked.
Pretty rare that I told you what to do.
I mean, coming in for the last album we made, Wake In Fright, I said I'm only playing a snare drum. So I'm like, okay. That's pretty annoying. I feel like in retrospect, I've even been like, I don't know why I did that for some of these songs. It doesn't really make any sense. So I never felt like I was having my like freedoms imposed on as part of working with Sam or trying to like find the right answers to things on my instrument. But that's my perspective. Yeah.
I mean, it's been a real it's been very enjoyable for me, because I think from the moment that I started like recording my own music in like 2018 or whatever, it was very much, you know, beaming it sort of into a computer and sort of making all these aesthetic decisions and arrangement decisions, and having to be very particular about that. But you know, getting to be a part of a genuine collective is really invigorating. And it's nice not to have to worry about, you know, a part. Like, I know that everybody in the band is not going to be happy until they're happy with their part. There's no passengers, you know, nobody's going to go, okay, well, that's good enough. I'm pretty keen to go to the pub, you know, so let's get practice over with. It's more like everyone's going to want to run this song again until they think they've got it right, because everyone sort of respects themselves as musicians as well.
I recently caught you guys at the Rocksteady Records in-store performance last week. Yeah, I was that guy right at the front, you know, blocking the view of the records. But I think that was something I really took from that performance, is that it was the first time I actually had a chance to see you guys. But I mean, at the risk of using a laboured analogy, you guys were sort of working like a well-oiled machine. There's the mechanic part thrown in there. But also, while watching you guys, there was a sense of intimacy and vulnerability to the music. Like, you guys were all very clearly in sync with each other. And also, just the general vibe at the show was one of community, and I guess, for a lack of a better word, catharsis. So I guess for all of you, like, how important are these aspects to the music that you all make and ultimately share with the world as well, whether it be recorded or in the live setting?
I mean, it's incredibly important to me. I feel lucky that a few years ago I decided not to work on any more music that I didn't care about. And sometimes that happens because doing like session music is one of the few ways that you can make money, and as a musician, I mean. And yeah, I mean, I've never done anything musically that I'm not somewhat proud of, and I really value working with people, so I don't mean to be dismissive in that way, but I think, yeah, it's the reason that I do music is that, like, I've been quoting myself, but it's the only way I know how to be like truly close to people in like a non, you know, kind of relationship way, even though we are all also great friends. But yeah, there's a special kind of
It's a different kind of
intimacy and vulnerability that comes from making stuff together and playing music in particular together. And I've gotten similar feelings from doing improvised music, to like mucked around a bit with like jazz improv and then kind of wacky post-classical improv. And getting to do it in a sustained way with a kind of collective people in a band setting, yes, why I do it, why I'm interested in making stuff at all. And I think it's not a thing I get to express or enjoy in other parts of my life, as I can find being a person in general somewhat difficult of an experience. So yeah, it's great. It's the whole reason I do it, and it's the thing that I'm always trying to get better at, is how to play music with others. That's my only goal, really.
Well, because I mean, even just from like I don't know how long it was, like half hour that you guys were playing just the other day, like pretty much each of you as individual musicians, there was just something so arresting and like almost intoxicating about the way you all perform. Like it's a sort of thing where like I've long talked about the band Skyhooks, where I'm like, if they didn't have a singer and they were an instrumental band, that would be amazing. And it's like every single musician in that band is working so well, and that's how I felt about you guys. Like, you know, I was like, you know, like Thea watching the violin, I was just like stunning. Like, you know, watching drums, the bass, everything about, and of course the rest of you, banjo, you know, Sam, guitar and vocals, all of it works so well together that it's sort of like, like I feel there are some bands when you watch them and you can say like, oh yeah, that one up there, that's the MVP. With all of you, you're all the MVPs of the band, and I feel like that is such a great indicator of a strong band. And I feel like I'm rambling, just heaping you all with praise right now. But I guess that's also a bit of a weird way for me to sort of say, like, with this record now out in the world, how have you guys actually been feeling about the reaction to it all? You know, were you thinking it would be as warmly received as it has been? Because I've been seeing some really amazing reviews for it, and rightly so, honestly.
We hoped so, I guess. We hoped that people would like it. We thought it was good, and it didn't sour for us the longer that we sat on it. It didn't. We didn't really wake up one day and listen to it and go, "Oh, geez, I wouldn't do that now," kind of thing. So, I mean, maybe Alan.
I've got some qualms by this. We get. I mean, a lot of people.
We're like, I guess like it's one thing because when you're making music, you get a lot of people. I don't know, like people close to us or like friends with us and go, "Oh, this is really good," and like I mean, you're proud of it as well. And so when people go, "This is really good," if you have a team around you and you have your manager go, "Oh, this is really great," and you guys are stars, and it's great to hear that. But I think it's nice. You always are. You're never going to quite fully know until it's out in the world what people think of it. But you do get this perception of like, well, everyone I've spoken to so far thinks it's good. So it would be an interesting kind of left turn if all of a sudden people are going, "Oh, this is like worthless," you know, or whatever. This is like really ill-conceived. But like at least like, you know, lots of people were saying nice things to us in private when they heard it, or at shows in Adelaide when they heard the music. So it's nice that that trend has continued, I guess. Like, I don't know. Like,
I mean, you know, you would know this working in music journalism as well, obviously. Like, I think my expectation was that, well, no one's going to pan it because at this stage, if somebody is working on your record, they don't pan it. They just say something vaguely kind and sort of non-committal about it. It's not music journalism.
Or they just don't.
Yeah, or they just don't review it. Just like it doesn't seem like music journalists are paid well enough at the moment to be allowed to properly pan things as much as I would love them to.
Yeah.
So I kind of almost don't believe it's been acclaimed or well received because I don't think a record that, you know, at our sort of developing stage is really placed in the is placed on the same like critical field as more popular records. Like I don't think it's really supported for people to talk shit about this album, even if they wanted to. But I would love them too.
Yeah, try and find that stuff.
That would be cool.
Yeah. So basically, what I'm hearing is you guys will gladly welcome any negative feedback because at the very least, it means that people are listening to it, doesn't it?
If it's a genuine, like, if someone just walks by and says like wankers, we go okay. But like if people have really like sometimes we get snippets of it in some of the reviews that have come through where people have certain aspects that they genuinely critique. That's really helpful and good. Like I think it's nice to have a genuine balance of opinion of like why someone might take issue with something we're doing, because I don't want to be completely inoculated from just any bad feedback writ large.
It also makes it much easier to genuinely internalize anything positive, because I feel like, you know, again, like I don't feel particularly connected to much positive reception of it because I don't think they'd be allowed to say if they didn't enjoy it. But there are certain things where someone's written and it's like, and I can tell that there's a criticism, or I can tell there's a level of like how personally someone's connected to it. Like there's the FBI piece in particular was like really personally relating things and synthesizing sort of, I don't know, I really love when a journalist like gets to talk about themselves. I think that's wonderful. I'm obviously, you know, being related to Ellie, you learn to love that kind of thing.
Journalists love to talk about themselves. They really do. That's why I run a podcast, so I can just talk about it.
It's necessary for good criticism, you know, like you learn so much about the best critics, you know their personality, you know, like with Roger Ebert or Pauline Kael, even when you like disagree with them, you're like, well, that's so them to think about this piece of art in this way, and it kind of helps you, you know, define your own views against that.
I think the thing that feels the best to me is just when kind of what you were saying already, where everyone's saying that when you can tell people have spent time with the record, whether or not they really loved it, or if they liked it, or the aspects that they liked, I think that's just such a huge privilege. To have people spend time with the things that you made, and we can really tell when people have, and that to me is the most gratifying part of things. I mean, it's great that people are saying nice things about it in general. But I'm probably more excited to put another record out and then see what people
how it's changed.
Yeah, because again, it was like we captured like who we were 3 years ago, and in some ways, there's a bit of distance from that, right? It's like, well, we made what we made, you know. Like I still love the album and care about it, but I care about it knowing what we've made next. So I'm interested for that.
Yeah,
absolutely. Well, I mean, I can definitely say that if anyone is actually listening to this chat that we will be putting up online at some point, definitely revisit the Modern Shoe is Ruining the Foot, because I've already listened to it about 3 or 4 times over the last couple of weeks, just alone, because it's such a warm and inviting record that I keep discovering something new every time. But look, I feel in the interest of time, I should get down this last little section of the podcast. So what I usually do in the Trusty Chords section of this podcast is I usually go around and ask about influential artists, albums, and songs. So with 5 of you, I'm going to ask each of you that one question about who might be your most influential artist. So I might start with yourself, Sam. Who would you call the one artist that is the most influential to yourself?
Probably David Bowie is who we've been talking about a lot actually in the last few weeks. But yeah, I think, you know, if I was being truthful about the Modern Shoe, it's like it's, you know, Bob Dylan all over. But the way that I'm really drawn to the way that Bowie approaches, you know, periods and changes so much sonically, and obviously people focus a lot on his chameleonic appearance, and I don't necessarily have high hopes for myself in that regard. But I mean, who knows? You know, never say never. But what is of interest to me is, you know, the way that he moved through different sonic iterations, often kind of with the same band. Like the rhythm section is the same from 75 to like 1980, and there's so many different sounds in there. So it's very much of interest to me going forward with Enneagram Mechanic, and like the band dynamic at large is how to approach distinct eras without the sort of padding of being a solo artist like Dead Boy was. But you
Amazing,
can just
amazing response, and I'm very much looking forward to your Berlin period as well.
Thank you.
Alrighty, Tia, what about yourself? Hello, just jumping in very quickly here to let you know that the audio gets particularly bad in a moment, which is a damn shame because that is when Tia goes through the artist that they picked. That artist in question is Pauline Oliveros. You might not be able to hear that, but that's why I'm jumping in early here, just so you can be aware of who Tia is actually talking about. Anyway, we'll get back to it now, and again, apologies for the poor audio here. I hope you can still enjoy this regardless.
An accordion player and electronic composer. I think I'm interested in her because she plays kind of a weird instrument. It's funny to make her solo instrument on accordion. Then she did a lot of really interesting early kind of electronic music, which is something I think about a lot, despite not really making any music that way myself currently. But the main reason that I've been really drawn to her work over the last few years is that she then kind of dedicated the rest of her life to the idea of music and sound as being for everybody, and the healing capacity of music and sound. And she wrote a lot of music that was deliberately to be performed by non-musicians, and I'm really interested in how we bring more people into having meaningful encounters with art. We obviously have ways of accessing artistic experiences. I think they are being more regulated into kind of horrible ways of experiencing that art, and I get really drawn to people set out to bring people together and to give people entry points into making things for themselves. And there's also a really great quote about the relationship between capitalism and art, and that we've been convinced out of the idea that making stuff is for everybody. That's actually how we should be interacting with making things. And that's not a foreign idea to a lot of parts of the world that are not studying that stuff. Sorry, that went a bit better than I intended. Pulling Oliveros is a legend.
No, that is so totally fine. But I guess in the interest of time, because we are slowly diminishing, I should keep going along the line. So yeah, let's keep on going. Influential artist, what would you be picking?
There's too many, and I could probably relate them to different aspects of like listening and making music. But I'd probably go to honor my little boy self, Elliott Smith, who's probably one of the only artists who I've liked as a child and still like for the same reasons now. I think especially his later stuff, I think is like a really excellent example of taking your influences and refracting them through your own personal experiences and seeing what comes of that. And I think just he's a great auteur, excellent guitar player, and I had a really great ear for melody, which is what pulled me in the very early instance, and then sort of becoming a lucid adult. I've been able to listen to the lyrics and be like, wow, this is actually really, really good stuff that he's singing about. So yeah. Figure Eight is his best record. I know everyone here disagrees, but it is just this really.
It is a very strong album, I will say. But I mean, we could be starting arguments, I'm sure. What do we have as the next influential artist?
Well, again, there are so many, and yeah, you can kind of apply them in different things, like what it means to play music or whatever. But the guy, my favorite guy is probably has to be Thelonious Monk, because I just never get tired of him, and there's so much about him that I love. He could do so much. But if you want to know what makes Monk great, you just listen to In Walk Bud from Mysterioso, because what he did was he brought Johnny Griffin on, who was not a very well-known sax player at that time. And then he does the best playing he's ever done in his whole life on that solo that he does. And then when he's really getting going, Monk stops playing and gets up, and you can hear him clinking around and dancing around on stage and stuff. And I just think it's beautiful, because he, as an older musician, I mean, people forget, but he was born in the generation of like Duke Ellington and stuff. He got this young guy and created a platform for this amazing thing. And then at the moment when it was kind of reaching its peak, just kind of like stop playing and just kind of let it happen. And so that moment, I think, which happens about like 5 minutes the way through, it's just really beautiful. And that sort of like encaptures, I think, what I really love Monk. Apart from everything else, that he was one or two greatest jazz composers ever. Obviously, as an improviser, he's totally on a different plane. Yeah.
It's absolutely stunning. And obviously we have one last influential artist. We probably won't get to any albums and songs, so let's kick this one on home with our final influential artist.
Yeah, everyone seems to be stewing on lots of different things. There's only really one answer for me, and that is the comedian Stuart Lee. The thing, watching Stuart Lee,
Friend of the band.
being on stage, watching Stuart Lee and getting into him is like, I think for me, two things become apparent. Is that one is he's an excellent stand-up comedian, and two is that he's not really a stand-up comedian. And that's kind of the approach I'm trying to have, and the way he's able to problem solve out of, and being really influenced by Monk in his own way, a lot of jazz musicians, and draw in influences to make what is a genre, a kind of medium he's sort of lost in, something that really works for him in his own way. Is the kind of way I'd like to approach music, because I think for a lot of my life I didn't really see myself as a creative, or that music could really be the thing for me. I find myself in this position, and to be able to take that influence of just be able to synthesize things from all sorts of different spaces, and then be hopefully the best drummer I can be, but also not really a drummer at all.
Amazing responses, and I can definitely say you are 100% the best drummer in Any Young Mechanic. So this is where I'll wrap things up, guys, and I'll say, Any Young Mechanic, thank you very much for your time today, and for being on the Trusty Chords podcast as well.
Thank you.
Thanks so much. Thank you guys. It was awesome.
Thank you for listening to Trusty Chords. If you listened to this episode and enjoyed it, I'd really appreciate it if you were able to take a few moments to like, follow, share, and review this podcast on your preferred platform of choice. As always, there's no obligation to do so, but considering that it helps the podcast reach, I am forever grateful if you do. As always, I'm over on Instagram and Facebook at Trusty Chords Podcast, all one word. I've also got the blog at my website, which is tylerjenke.com. That's TYLERJENKE/Trusty Chords Podcast, all one word. That's where you can find a list of all the songs chosen by my guests each week, along with a playlist of all the songs chosen thus far. You can also find a link to the Buy Me a Coffee platform, where you can throw me a few dollars to keep this podcast running if you feel so inclined. I also need to thank all the members of Any Young Mechanic for spending their time with me this week, and I also need to extend my apologies to all the members of Any Young Mechanic for spending their time with me this week in what ended up being a terrible sounding podcast through no fault of their own. Likewise, I also need to thank Chris from Warner Music for helping to organise the chat as well. You're all very wonderful, and I do deeply apologise for the audio problems that this podcast features. But once again, thank you kindly for listening, and I hope to see you all again next week as I continue to celebrate music and those that create it.